welcome to the presentation for our ADPR 4091 final project. This project was done by Natalie and Nora. Natalie is an undergrad student, so I'm doing the presentation portion of the project, but she did help me with the rest of the project and actually assisted with the slides as well. So for this project, we decided to focus on the national brand Nike. Nike is actually an international sportswear and athleisure brand that is best known for its shoes, athleisure styles, and celebrity partnerships. Its hashtag and its tagline, "Just Do It," is popular and known around the world. The brand has a reputation for taking a stance publicly on social justice issues, most recently continuing its support of the controversial BLM movement, a movement supported publicly since 2016. So while we decided to look at this brand, we didn't just want to look at how people were engaging with it and reacting to it, across the board. We really narrowed in to look at the way it relates to social justice issues, most specifically the BLM movement. So that led us to come up with our number one goal, which is to understand and gather information about the reactions to Nike's stance on social justice issues and how they use their voice to speak out on important topics. By doing that, we wanted to identify opportunities for responses, additional partnerships, and more, while also staying up to date on what consumers are saying about these ideals and principles. When we did this project, we also took time to look at competitors. We did the same thing. We picked, three competitive brands in the athleisure market, and specifically ones that have a big focus on shoes as well. So that's Under Armour, Reebok, and Adidas. But when we looked at these brands as a whole, we also paid special attention to how each of them responded to social justice issues as well. So across the board, these brands made comments here and there about the BLM movement. And then we also noticed that Reebok specifically had a lot of content related to pride. And looking back, it seems like that is something that sticks with their brand over time. And that content was definitely ramped up when we were doing the research portion because Pride Month just happened in June. When we looked at the different channels, we decided to focus mostly on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You'll notice that for Adidas, we looked at their Snapchat as well. That was because they are not active on TikTok. But for the most part, those were the three platforms that had the most relevance, not just for the brands, but also when we're looking at social justice issues. This is a video that Nike came out with. It was actually put out by Nike. So I do want to make that clear because we were looking at, consumers, social intelligence from consumers. But there was a lot of reaction to this and engagement with this post, and I think it really shows why we decided to look at Nike and, its stance on the BLM movement. So I just want to play this ad. So with this video, you can really see why we decided to focus on Nike and the BLM movement and their kind of stance on social justice in general. I wanted to show this ad because it really makes it apparent how much Nike cares about these things. And then when you're looking at social media, seeing the way this ad is shared and the way people engage with it and the comments on those posts actually does provide a lot of social listening opportunities and gives us a lot of information that we could take back to the brand and definitely use as gauging responses from consumers. I did also want to share this because it's specific. It really does show just how much Nike is putting precedence on this. I know this has changed over time. They haven't always had the Black Lives Matter hashtag on there. It's relevant again, but Nike was very involved in this movement when it first started back in 2016 as well. So this isn't just a brand new thing they're doing. But when you look at their bios, you can see that on both Instagram and Twitter, basically their entire bio, aside from like an address and a link, is the Black Lives Matter hashtag. And that really fits with a lot of the content they're sharing as well. And it just really, speaks volumes that that is what they feel like is most important about their brand right now. On TikTok, that's not really applicable. They just don't have a bio on there, which is, somewhat common across brands. I want to include the word clouds that we came up with as well. The one on the left is the one that we made for our project. It shows a lot of the words that really came out of looking at the bios and kind of the preliminary information, just some of the research that we dug into that we felt described the brand. But then on the right side, I also wanted to share one of the two word clouds that Brandwatch had. This was part of our readings from last week. Brandwatch did a couple of these word clouds surrounding Nike, but you'll see there's other words in there too. It also has Adidas. This was, has Yeezy. It has information about some different sneaker brands, and then some of the hashtags. You see NFL in there. A lot of these words that really tie into what makes Nike what it is, and a lot of them actually really do tie into the BLM movement as well. So I really wanted to include that. I also wanted to show our Boolean queries that we used. These are the different ones that we ended up using. We tried several, and we came up with these as kind of giving us the most information to dive into Nike and its social justice, platforms, specifically Black Lives Matter. We did it several different ways so we could kind of get a lot of information about Nike, and we felt like this collection of queries actually gave us the most information that was targeted enough. So that was really helpful. It helped us see Nike is such a big brand with so many people talking about it in so many different ways that these queries really gave us a chance to sort through that data while still focusing on our tailored goal. I thought that the TikTok insights were particularly interesting. I'm not a huge TikTok user myself. I actually didn't have an account until this class, so I was surprised that this ended up being one of my favorites. I wanted to share one of the videos that I came across because it was very interesting the way it interacts with the BLM movement. It wasn't put out by Nike. It was just put out by a random user. And basically what they did is they stopped people from looting and destroying, vandalizing this Nike store during some peaceful protests. And the video was interesting. It didn't have a ton of engagement, but when you dove into the comments, you could see that people have a lot of brand loyalty to Nike, and people are very aware of their stance on social justice issues. So you can see on the left side some of these comments about people like, why our store's getting looted, or people are saying Nike should be looted. And so Jake Park down there, you can see he says Nike publicly supports BLM. So there are loyal people out there. There are a lot of people that are loyal to the brand, that know what they stand for, and that information, not everyone knows that, but that information is being shared through this engagement on content that Nike doesn't have any say over. And that wasn't the only comment like that, so I felt like it was really important to kind of include that information so we could see how consumers are reacting. Overall, consumer conversations about Nike's stance on social issues is both positive and negative. They are talking about very controversial issues, so of course you're always going to get the positive and the negative. It's important for Nike to be aware of the negative comments, but I didn't see anything that stood out that really felt like Nike had something to apologize for or was doing something wrong. I think that information can be used and maybe find a way to respond to it in the future. But in general, compared to competitors, Nike produces advertising efforts that are relevant to current social justice events, specifically BLM, with less focus on COVID-19 than a lot of the other brands are doing right now. They also build partnerships and relationships with individuals, companies, and organizations that share the same ideals and principles, such as the NFL, Ben & Jerry's, and Colin Kaepernick. So they actually partnered with Colin Kaepernick back in 2016. We could see some of that data when we looked at Brandwatch and what they were putting out there, that there's different spikes kind of surrounding that campaign that was considered really controversial. They also partnered very recently with Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's is another brand that's been at the forefront of really supporting Black Lives Matter. So that was seems like a somewhat, charged partnership that the two of them put together to have ice cream and shoes mixed together. That's a photo you can see right there. And then also the NFL. One of the videos that I found on TikTok was this video that was, different NFL players coming out and talking about BLM, and it wasn't produced by Nike, but Nike was tagged in it and hashtagged in it and all of those things because the NFL is so closely related to Nike. So that kind of shows the benefits of a partnership like that, as well as I'm sure some of the negatives as well. Um, Last thing I wanted to show was as far as the data analysis, reporting, and dashboards. So I really liked Brandwatch and what they did when with their Reebok versus Nike comparison, and some of the charts that they came up with. So what we're looking at here are two of the charts from Brandwatch. These are the two that represent Nike, so you can see their mentions of volumes over time. I really like that because you see the spikes in their mentions, and then through analysis, they were able to go in and kind of figure out what was going on at that time that was causing these spikes in mentions. And I think that's really important data to have. At the bottom, we also see kind of the general attitude towards Nike, and you can see peaks and dips. And again, they're able to do the same thing, look at specific dates, what was going on then that people were responding positively to as well as negatively to. And that type of information is something I would want to include in a full data analysis and in reporting as it relates to this topic and social justice and BLM specifically. So that pretty much wraps everything up. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.